Hey, what's up, friends and family? Back here with Jason Davenport with Google Cloud, and I am joined in this next session with Shubham Saboo, an AI product manager here at Google Cloud. And Shubham, super excited to have you on the show and to talk about all of the cool things that we're doing here at Cloud Next. So let's get into it. What is the most exciting things that we're doing for developers here that we've launched here today at Google Cloud?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jason. Really excited to talk about it. There are quite a few things that we did for developers here at Google Cloud, but there are three things I'm particularly excited about.
The power of three, right?
To say that. So the first one is Agent CLI in
Okay.
Agent Platform. Now, what that is, it's a brand new CLI. It's a combination of skills and commands that let you build, scale, govern, optimize the entire agent development lifecycle.
That's super cool.
That's your entry point to building anything with Agent Development Kit and Gemini Enterprise Agent Platform.
Okay.
It works with any of your coding agents. So all you need to do is just install the CLI. You can do a global install. It gets picked up by any of your coding agents. You can use Gemini CLI, Cloud Code,
Yeah.
Codex, whatever your preference of coding agent is. And it just works. That's the beauty of it. Like it's the entry point. You go in, you give it a command. I want to build XYZ agents. It knows everything about ADK. It knows everything about the agent platform.
Yeah.
It has all the context, all the skills needed to build the agent for you. That's the beauty about it.
That's super cool. And before we come to maybe the life cycle of Agents CLI, I think one of the things that you talked about there, and so maybe to do a quick off road, you mentioned skills.
Yeah.
So what are skills? And then how are we using skills here at Google Cloud and in Agents CLI to make that development easier?
Awesome. No, that's a great question. So, to summarize, like skills is something that makes the agent smarter and intelligent. So it really provides agents with different kind of capabilities that agents can execute and do. Previously, what you would do before skills, before the
Yeah.
introduction of skills, you would stuff everything that you would want your agent to do in a single system prompt or a single prompt, which would make your prompt be like tens and
Yeah.
hundreds of lines of code. Your agent can get lost in context. Now, Skills introduced the smarter, and this is not specific to Google Cloud. Skills is a standard, generic standard across like every AI company, every AI product. They now use agent skills. What it does is it gives your AI agent different capabilities. Your AI agents can decide at runtime which skills that they would want to use. And that's what we are using for Agent CLI as well. So Agent CLI
Yeah.
has a combination of number of skills around agent platform, which helps you build scaffold. It has all the context of scaffolding an agent, building an agent, deploying an agent across the Gemini Enterprise agent platform.
One of the things I think is super cool, with all the skills. Obviously, we're launching skills, for Google Cloud products. Like we have a number that are out there today, which are make it essentially your agent an expert, whatever product it's using. The thing that I love in the CLI though, right, is that you need to know both the technical skill, and then we also need to know some more kind of process-based skills. So how do we use, or how does CLI use skills to make that agent development so much easier?
Yeah. So the way CLI is built is it is replicating how you as a expert software engineer or an agent engineer would go about building your agent, deploying
Okay.
your agent, evaluating your agent, adding observability. Now imagine all of those capabilities summed up in a skill that an
Yeah.
AI coding agent can just use through simple commands, through simple English prompts. How cool is that?
Uh, I mean, I've scaffolded a lot of this stuff before, and like I can tell you, like it does make it significantly easier, which I greatly appreciate. Um, let's talk about some of the things now that we're doing in evaluation with the CLI. How is the CLI helping to make evaluation easier for agents that folks are building?
Yeah, so the great thing about it is in agent platform, in the govern section, if you look at the things that we have introduced, we have introduced a number of ways for you to evaluate your agents.
Yeah.
Now, one way to use it would be to go read the docs, look at the blogs, look at what we install, what we released, go to the platform, do it yourself. Or you could just ask your coding agent with Agent CLI install, I want to evaluate my agents. What am
Should
I?
I go install the CLI after this podcast? No, I hope I have it already.
Yeah, I think you should be doing it already. Yeah. So coming to that, I think what it really makes easy for people is now you don't have to think about all these things. So the question that you're asking me, you can now ask it to your coding agent. It has context of agent platform. And the best way to get started with, if you're interested in evals, is ask the coding agent, what all eval options do I have? Like, how can I
Yeah.
evaluate my agents? And then walk. It can walk you through that process. It can, like, you can do back and forth in the process. You're not only just building those features and adding those features
Yeah.
to your agents. You're also learning in the process.
So I think that last part that you hit on is super critical. As I think of even like my own journey with agents, I've been using them pretty extensively now for probably the better part of a year or 2 years. Um, it's super cool to think about like my evolution and my learning with that, and to be able to use something like CLI to start to get those tidbits. Hey, how is agentic evaluation different than LLM evaluation, right? Like because they're kind of similar, but they're also really different, right? One I'm just looking at like a prompt response. The other I'm trying to manage the outcome.
Yeah.
Like super cool to have just something where I can start to get those tidbits and then learn along the way for it. Um, let's talk about another thing. If you think of like learning and kind of bringing that, I don't want to say determinism, but like outcome based, the learning to agents. What's new in Agent Development Kit? So we just announced Agent Development Kit 2.0, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, great question. So in Agent Development Kit 2.0, we introduced graph-based workflows,
Okay.
which makes it really, really easy for you to bring that kind of determinism, that kind of reliability that you would want in your production workflows
Yeah.
into agents. So one thing was agents was it was non-deterministic. It could just, based on the prompt, based on what model would understand, could go in any of those directions. But now you'd have like precise control over the routing, what the task execution would happen, and how would you structure the entire system. So that kind of determinism could come
Yeah.
into your agents through graph-based workflows.
And maybe for folks out there, like what? So you could obviously identify almost any type of process or workload. Where you see, like, what types of processes should folks be thinking about would be a good use case for or candidate for this graph-based workflows approach?
Yeah, the processes where you, like, in financial services and
Yeah.
insurance claims, processes where you need a little bit of a reliability and determinism, where you exactly know that there are some deterministic logic which you don't want to
Yeah.
identify, right? You don't want to bring the big guns for everything. When you know it could just work with like some small emulation, just
Yeah.
go with that. You just have your deterministic logic sit there, make sure it gets executed in that specific way. So all those applications where your deterministic logic is very specific and you don't need to identify everything, that's where you can use this to route your agents to those like specific routes or
Yeah.
those specific things, where it can execute those things with such determinism, but still have that agentic logic baked in.
Yeah. As I think about agent building, right? One of the things that I always think about is like, you know, you want the non-determinism when you really like need it, but I want determinism for all the other components. And with the graph-based approach, I can see like how that's really kind of coming to life, right? Like there are things that non-determinism is really desirable, and like to your point, like if I have to route to 5 different steps, like just do each step, right? Like and bringing that graph approach to it is super cool. All right, so all these things, right? Like what's the one maybe thing that we've launched as a part of these that you're excited about that we haven't talked about?
I'd say long running AI agents.
Oh, long running.
Yeah, everyone is super excited about OpenClaw, Hermes, like that's all
Yeah.
the hype. Uh, but with agent runtime at Cloud Next, we have launched long-running AI agents. Now, agents can maintain state up to several days. So
That's super
you
cool.
can just start running an agent today and will still remember what you did like 2 days ago or 3 days ago. Now, agents can maintain state up to 7 days. I'm really excited about
7 days, right?
yeah,
So
seven,
okay.
7 days. So really excited about long-running AI agents. And to enable those long-running AI agents in production, we have also launched ambient agents and resume agents in ADK, Agent Development Kit. So
Okay.
what ambient agents is, so your agents is as smarter as the prompts that you would
Yeah.
give them. Normally, the way you would execute, like you would just give some instructions based on that, agent will trigger off. But how about if your agents can trigger off based on events, based on sending a text, based on schedules, based on crons. That's what Invent Agent enables. And when you have these long-running agents, you would get into this problem. There could be a network drop, or there could be any kind of
Yeah.
interruption. And before, what used to happen is whenever there
We
is an
called those coffee breaks when people were doing the work, by the way.
yeah. So whenever that used to happen
Yeah.
before, your agent would have to restart. So you would not like to take those coffee breaks. But
Uh,
now you can easily take those now you can easily take those coffee breaks with by just turning like one parameter as true in when you're defining your agents.
yeah.
Your agents can resume from wherever they paused before. And it also helps with all the human in the loop workflows, right? We talked about the insurance claims processing agent. For
Yeah.
example, let's take an example of that, right? When you build that, at times you would want a human to approve. There will be
Yeah.
times like you would not want to completely or 100% automate that process. But that human in the loop requires some kind of pausing, right? So you might not have time to approve it right then and right there.
Yeah.
You might approve it 6 hours later, 8 hours later, maybe 2 days later, depending on how long your weekend is, right?
Well, so what I love about that, if you think of kind of stopping and resuming agents, right? So the first thing we have is obviously context. Hey, what does the agent have in the current context window? So we have to manage that.
Mhm.
If you think of agents that have access to tools or sandboxes, like we also have to maintain those. So like pausing and resuming is actually not a like very easy problem to solve,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, uh,
And
yeah.
gotta
So
make it easy.
yeah. So none of these things, like even long running agents, they sound great, right? But none of these were like trivial problems to
Yeah,
solve. But the great thing about this is we have made it like super simple for
yeah,
people to build these things with Agent Development Kit. And cherry on the top, now you can do all of those through Agent CLI. And Agent CLI again is not just for building one agent. Like so, we talked about building agent,
yeah,
deploying, adding evals, observability. So it has all the context around Agent Platform, but you can extend the functionalities of agents. So you can add tools. Like again, similarly,
yeah,
if you don't know what tools exist, just ask Agent CLI. I would know, right? All you need to do is talk to your agents. So we are in the phase where we are building agents with agents, and all we are doing is talking to agents, and it can do or it can complete the entire
yeah.
agent development lifecycle for you, just like having you, Jason, with me all the time. That's like you're an expert, and having you, okay, but Agent CLI can now do that for me.
I think the agent's probably more of an expert than I am in most things.
I doubt that.
So, one of the coolest examples, kind of talking about agents, that I saw in the keynote, Sundar's talking about how we're using agent teams for doing migrations here at Google Cloud, right? We talk about, planner agents, an orchestrator agent, and then kind of the worker agent or the executor agent. What I like about that, if you take a step back, like that's kind of a good blueprint, right? Whether it's coding or kind of another team-based approach, like you usually have those three roles. What other types of teams are you seeing folks build with agents, and other like kind of interesting or like cool moments you're seeing so far?
Yeah, yeah. So people are doing a lot of cool stuff with multi-agent patterns
Yeah,
or multi-agent teams, and I would say like a great place to get started for people is Agent Garden. We haven't talked about Agent Garden yet.
we have not talked about that yet.
Yeah. So Agent Garden is a library of pre-built templates where you'll find all those cool patterns that you're
Yeah,
talking to me about. You're asking me about, where our team of experts have put together those pre-built templates. All you have to do, and the GitHub source code is also out there. All you have to do is just pull that in your
yeah,
coding agent, give your specific requirements. I want to however you would want to customize it for, and can customize it for you.
yeah,
You can also deploy it as is. So Agent Garden has all those kind of patterns, use cases, multi-agent teams. Coming back, like in ADK, we support a number of multi-agent patterns or
okay,
multi-agent workflows that you can do. Like three simple ones is sequential, loop agent, and parallel agent. So sequential, like in a pipeline, you can
yeah,
execute loop where you have like an agent looping through different steps, and parallel agents where you can have like multiple sub agents doing parallel tasks, because you always would not want a single agent to do like sequentially things that could be done parallelly. But these are there are a number of patterns depending on who you would ask. But these are the fundamental patterns
Yeah.
which build up on a top of a lot of patterns. There's like human in the loop pattern, coordinated dispatcher pattern, iterative refinement. Like I can name names, but if you know these like fundamental patterns and think from first
Yeah.
principles, I would suggest like work with your agent, work your way up with your agent, and ask them what are all different patterns that we can build depending on our use case. Like what becomes really important is for you to understand what your problem statement is, put it in simple English, install Agent CLI, use any coding agent that you would like, and yeah, just start talking. That's all you need.
Yeah, one of the things I love, well, one, I love Ralph Wiggum as a character, obviously, but the Wiggum loops, if you think of learning agentic behavior, like Wiggum loops are kind of one of the first like times you kind of look at you like, okay, well, I know that character from TV, which is highly entertaining to me. But just the pattern of thoughts doing that, and then you kind of move from that into kind of the two agent team. Okay, so can I have one agent do something and work with another agent to do it, and then you start to get to even more stuff like gas towns architecture
Right.
on agent teams and all that, and like those are super cool, right? But if you start off like trying to build that end state, like there's so much learning that we still have to do as developers just to, I think, be able to really use that system effectively. And it's super cool to hear how we have these things in Agent Garden that really make that easy, for folks to go use in it.
Yeah, yeah. Like these are kind of templates. So we talked about Agent CLI, which
Yeah,
is your entry point. We talked about ADK, like the new developments in ADK. It's all about the flexibility. Like
yeah,
now it is giving developers all the flexibility around building graph-based workflows. If your use case involves something which is deterministic and you would want to have specific routes, we talked about the ambient agents, pause and resume agents
yeah.
in ADK. It's all about flexibility, like giving you as a developer and your agents more flexibility to go explore and build those production systems.
What's
And
that?
in the end, we talked about long running AI agents, which is okay, now you have all these pillars, you have all these building blocks. What would you do with them? You would want your agents to just keep running and keep asking questions. Start with all the context baked in, not start fresh every time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I'm like, I would build an agent that can analyze YouTube videos about golf analytics and then tell me just constantly how I can improve my golf swing. Uh, I should probably do that after the show just
That's a
to
good use
actually
case.
make sure that we can like do
You
this
can
right.
add it to Agent Garden as well.
I should put on Agent Garden. That would
Yeah.
be perfect, actually. This is a good challenge. I might do this in the next month.
I'll be looking forward.
It's multimodal. It's all that fun stuff too. All right, let's do one last question here. So obviously you're here at Cloud Next all week. What's on your agenda? What are you most excited about here as we look into the end of day one and into day 2 and 3?
Yeah, I'm really excited about all the capabilities in specifically in the govern and optimize section, the pillar that we will be launching
Yeah,
for Agent Platform. Really excited about this narrative of building agents with agents and the flexibility that you could have now with building production agents with things that we are introducing in Agent Development Kit. So if you combine all of those, you would have a system that is like really intelligent that can run for days and
yeah,
days, not hours or not a few minutes. So we are moving from demo to something that is production, that can run in production reliably
yeah.
and can really solve real problems.
And that's the real like I've done some of this stuff manually over the past probably 12 months, and having the product to do it, honestly, it's a game changer because it's not, once you've done it right, then it's repetitive, but getting the system for it is very hard to get right, and cool to see what we're doing with Google as part of that. All right, thank you, Shubham, for joining us here on the live stream. Thank you, everyone listening in. We're gonna cut over here, and we'll keep on the fun stuff here in a few minutes.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.